I don't think I can't do it to people. I can't do it. People's well-being is more important to me than the money, and that's why I don't do aesthetics, because I feel that everyone that has aesthetics, and they should know the dangers, they should know the risks, because like I said, I had my entire face, one side, frozen for 3 months.
Hello and welcome back to the Face It podcast. I'm your host, Jessica. As always, we have another super interesting guest for you on today's show. I am going to do that British thing, though, at the moment, and moan about quite incessantly about the really crappy weather, because I am filming this in May right now. So we're really at the end of May, and it feels like we should have had some super nice weather at this point. I was on location yesterday filming another guest in Manchester, and I was running in and out, trying to make sure all the equipment wasn't getting wet and that my hair wasn't getting wet and that my makeup wasn't smudging, because obviously I'm on camera for 2 hours. So yeah, it just adds another layer of chaos to a shoot. So I'd quite like it to disappear now, but I do digress a little bit. We will be doing lots more of special guest feature episodes where we get to show you a little bit more than just an in-person interview. We get to see them at work, showcasing their products or their treatments. So much fun stuff to come. So stay tuned for those. If you like what you hear on today's show, then obviously please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like the chance to come in and chat to me about your experiences, share your stories and your expertise, then let me know. You can find us on Instagram at FaceItPod, or message me personally as well at Jess_Messenger. That's Messenger, MESSENGER. I'd love to hear from you. Now, though, it is time to introduce our guest today. So I want to say a lovely and warm welcome to Jen Adamson of Serpent's Brow. Welcome to the Face It podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you've been able to join me today. I do know Jen a little bit. It is worth mentioning. We both do PMU. Jen's been doing PMU quite a bit longer than I have, so that's why I've got her on here. She's got more experience to add to the table. I have also done a tooth gem for Jen, so I know her a little bit. But I'd love to know, where does the name Serpent's Brow come from? I love it. I think it suits your aesthetic and the fact you work from a lot of tattoo studios. But I just wondered, is there a bit of a story behind the name Serpent's Brow?
Not really. I had it when I first started. I had another name that I always found really hard to pronounce, and I don't know why I did it. It was Fleur Noir, and I'd always be like Noiri. And I'd be like, why have I given myself a name that I cannot pronounce? And for some reason, I got it in my head that serpent would be good. I have got snake tattoos all over me. I love snakes, as a visual, and brow, well, I tattoo eyebrows, so I thought, well, maybe that would go hand in hand. I also wanted a name that was sort of um, gender fluid, if that makes sense, because I didn't just want to do PMU for females, and I didn't want it to be more of a quite a girly name, and I also didn't want it the classic um
Pink brand.
browse by so and so, browse by this. I wanted something that had a bit more of a bit of a punch to it.
Yeah, I think you've definitely achieved that. As I say, it goes with your aesthetic quite well. You work from a lot of tattoo studios, so we're probably going to touch on that in a bit anyway. So was working in tattoo studios a strategic choice, or did you just kind of fall into that being your main place of work?
Well, when I actually started this, there was a girl who I knew online who was working in PMU in tattoo studios. She was a tattoo artist that had gone on to this, and it was somebody who I'll talk about later, who's been like my mentor. And there wasn't really that many people working with PMU in tattoo studios, but after doing the course that I did, I realized that actually I needed to be around tattoo artists, because I have been around tattoo artists for a very, very long time, with backgrounds in things I have done. And also, I realized that I hadn't had enough knowledge in the course that I'd had. And I knew that the knowledge I would get would be working hands-on in a tattoo studio, considering I tattoo skin.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I thought would be the ethos behind it. I'm going to come a little bit into your background later on because I'm interested to know like where you started and what you were doing before PMU. But obviously, what do you think the benefit of being in a tattoo studio is over a more traditional beauty salon clinic environment? Is it that expertise of working with needles in the skin? Is that the sort of main benefits? Are there any more?
Well, definitely. When I went into work at a tattoo studio with a wonderful girl called Bex Fisher, she actually taught me so much more to do with the actual needles that I'd been taught with. And to be honest with you, there was such a lack of knowledge and also some safety issues as well that I had not been taught with this particular course that I'd done. So yes, and also the cleanliness of the studio and how to clean things down and just do it in a correct manner, and everything had been so brushed upon. I mean, this will be something a lot of people will relate to, but we do these courses and suddenly we're slapped with a certificate after a week. But there's the working in a studio and being kind of like an apprentice that we kind of need before we are getting all in people's faces with a needle.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's a massive learning curve. Again, I think that I go on to that as a sort of question later on in our discussion. So we'll touch on a bit in terms of courses and stuff there. But
Yeah.
obviously, you've been working in permanent makeup now for several years. Why did you choose a career in PMU? Like, what was the epiphany moment?
It's a bit of a funny story, really. I'd been made redundant in lockdown, and for a couple of years before that, I'd been making gin of all things, and um,
Interesting.
a couple of years before that, it was such a random thing that I did, but I did actually really enjoy it. But as the pandemic happened, there was it wasn't viable for me to do that, and obviously I lost my job. But years before that, I worked with a few friends with a tattoo magazine called Things in Ink. So we had a really good run of it when it was in printed press, and I worked with a wonderful woman called Alice Snape, who was the editor, and I did the music part of it, but was involved in the tattoo world. But after being made redundant, I'd always wanted to kind of go back, and it was actually my ex-partner, and he had PMU on his head, and I had absolutely no idea what PMU was. It was something that had never. I didn't know what microblading was. I didn't know what PMU was. And then he'd gone out and obviously after I'd made him pull all his hair out, had to go get PMU tattooed on his head. And it was remarkable, the difference between like the before and after, and also the confidence that he had before and after. And I was thinking, oh my God. And he was like, why didn't you do this? And I did. So I got on to a few courses, did loads of research, and nearly 3.5 years later, I'm still doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I had no idea about that backstory, which is why I kind of wanted to get you on here and just find out a little bit more about you. Like, who is Jen? What does she do? Where does she come from? Like, why did you end up here? So sometimes I think that bit gets left out with people. It's just all about the treatment and what treatments they offer.
Mm,
So that's really interesting that it was just like that
yeah.
moment where you saw it and was like, I'm obsessed. What is this? I need to know more about it. I need to be involved. And I think what a perfect
Yeah, exactly.
blend
Yeah.
of like background and skills. Like you had all that experience within the tattoo world. I had no idea that you worked for them as
Yeah.
well. I had no idea that you had that background. So I think that it's clear, from your name, from the fact that you base yourself in tattoo studios, it's very clear that you have like a passion for the industry in general. So yeah, it's cool. Suits you well. So what do you love most about permanent makeup and why?
Well, it's the transformations at the moment. Actually seeing how you know, sometimes I'm even taken aback by my own work, and I'm like, oh my God, I've really winged it this time. This looks really good. I mean, I am still learning. I am still learning. I'm still doing courses. I'm still learning about the science. That you know, it's a big game, the permanent makeup world. It really is, and it's I love the learning. I love the techniques as well. Things seem to change all the time, and yes, it can be overwhelming keeping up with it. But the more we learn, the better our skills become, and the results are better. So that's what I'm loving about it at the moment. I'm loving the progression.
Yeah, I think there is so much more to it, like you say. And I had a similar experience, go on like a 5-day course. And I just came out. I think I'd literally seen you either just before I was going on my course or just
Mm,
after. And you mentioned PMU Circle then. So like the first thing I did when I came out of my training was go straight sign up
mm,
for PMU Circle, because I felt like a fish out of water. There's so much to know. And there's so much you can't
mm.
cram into 5 days, isn't there? Especially about
Yeah,
pigment science and everything else. So
yes.
yeah, there's a lot to learn. You offer laser removal services in your studio as well. It's an expensive piece of kit, as we all know. So why did you choose to add laser into your practice?
But I mean, this is being completely transparent and honest. But when I started doing PMU, and the particular course that I did kind of let you off into the world to do 10 case studies unsupervised.
Wow. Mm,
Some of the work came back to me for top ups later on, and it was awful, you know.
mm,
And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, you
mm,
know. They the course I was on, they gave me like this, so just tell them to go get laser removal or saline. But in my opinion, it was, if you put something on someone's skin, you should be able to
be
take
able
it
to.
off.
Mm,
And yeah, and it was something that, you know, for a couple of years it was honestly giving me sleepless nights. I was like, I can't believe I did that. I mean,
mm,
I had rectified it in the way as much as I could throughout the years. You know, let's say I did someone's brows at the very start. You know, a year and a bit later, when it had obviously faded because I hadn't quite learnt the right techniques, I was able to then make it look better. But it still wasn't exactly how I would do it now. So
mm.
I wanted to learn how to do laser removal, which was purely for that reason. But luckily, I work in a tattoo studio, and there is a lot of people that want things removed nowadays.
Yeah, I suppose you can use it as a dual machine in that way, isn't it? You've got a dual use there, which is great. Yeah, I completely get why you've got that ethos. It
Mm,
feels like your responsibility, doesn't it? And it is a huge investment,
yeah,
laser.
yeah.
That's probably one of the sticking points for people, I think, is the investment. But you know, you obviously took it serious enough to think, well, it's an investment worthwhile doing. Do you feel like it's paid for itself at this point? Do you think you're still kind of paying it off? Do you think it was worthwhile from a financial standpoint?
I mean, I think any small business would appreciate that the first couple of years you have to really invest into your own business and believing in yourself. And that's what I've done. And everything I did, because I never wanted to have financial difficulties with my business, I only paid for what I could afford.
Mm,
And I wouldn't do anything on finance. I wouldn't have these machines on loan or anything, so that monthly costs become too much and overbearing. So if I would calculate the amount that I've spent on everything against how much I've made, there may be a bit of a discrepancy. But in the long term, you know, if I just keep persevering, it will pay off for itself. Um and that's what keeps me going.
No, you're totally right. And I think, you know, the fact that you've chosen to do business that way is a really smart way to do it. You know, I'm sure you know by now, I come from a product background. I had a business beforehand that I closed. We had angel investors, you know, we had humongous amounts of investment to pay back. And that was a really stressful factor towards the end of that business. So I can really appreciate now I do it
Yeah.
exactly how you do it. If I can afford it in the business, I buy it into the business outright. I don't loan anything, I don't finance anything. It's purely, if I've got it in the bank, it'll get reinvested.
Yeah.
It does slow your growth down, I think, a little bit sometimes,
Mm.
not gonna lie. It would be nicer if I could just go and get my own clinic, stock it out, get the machines I want, get it looking banging, great. But actually, then you've got all that stress and that pressure to have
Mm.
to really get the clients in the door because you've got this huge amount to pay off. So I think the way that you've done it's super smart, and I
Yeah.
can't blame you for doing it that way.
And I also think that having your own studio is a little bit overrated, especially if you can work in another studio, for example. Working with people is really important because you don't want to be lonely. And also, if you can work in an environment with other people in someone else's studio, you can let them deal with that, and I think in this day and age, renting rooms out in bigger studios, and there are so many places like this now, is also completely financially, better. It's more viable.
I agree. There's a place for it, isn't there? I mean, obviously we have a lot of aesthetic practitioners on here as well, and
Mm.
they have that choice between sort of renting space or owning their own clinic. So it's a very similar thing. What are the benefits of laser over other removal practices in permanent makeup? And I'm asking you because I like to treat it as if anybody listening has no idea what we're talking about. So if you can explain what the other methods are and you know why you've chosen laser. And do you offer the other methods as well, actually, Jen? Do you do saline removal?
No, because I don't know enough about saline removal, to be perfectly honest. It's something that I still haven't researched enough. From what I have researched, I haven't particularly seen results that I would be 100% with. There's a lot of viral TikTok videos at the minute that are showing saline removal and the ink just wiping off. These are fake. This it doesn't happen
That
like
doesn't
that.
happen.
So no, no, and it's so misleading for people because it's just, unfortunately, if you want something nowadays, if you want to change your face, if you want a tattoo off, it's not going to be pleasant. That's the whole point. If things were made easy, we would all be doing it quickly. Laser removal, I've had laser removal myself. Years ago with the magazine, we did a laser removal journey. And at the time it was with quite a very expensive machine, the Pico.
Oh,
I can't
yes.
remember the Pico. From what I remember, it was at the Pico something. And also, this is something about laser machines as well. People can be really critical about whose machine is better than whose machine. I don't know enough scientifically about the different types of machines. Obviously, if a machine's going to cost something like £25,000, it's going to be better than one that's going to cost £10,000. I think that's just the nature of the beast. But the people that I trained with, quite a few people that I know from Nottingham, down south, London, we all have the same machine, and it works. It does what it says on the tin, and it does laser removal. But I don't really know any other methods, you see. And maybe because I just know that laser removal does work to a degree. But with laser removal and any other removal, there needs to be complete transparency over it. It may get rid of all your tattoo, it may not. There's no guarantees with any of this.
I think that's the thing to remember as well about PMU in general, tattooing in general, just ink in the skin. There's no guarantees on how
Yeah.
things are going to heal. There's no guarantees how things are going to fade. There's no guarantees on the removal. There's just no guarantees all round, is there? And I think, like you say, the
No.
transparency needs to be clearer around this industry with clients.
No, I was going to say there needs to be more transparency with clients and other practitioners as well.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, there's a lot of Billy bullshitting going on in the industry, and it's quite disheartening for the practitioners and also the customers for the results. So that's what's definitely needed with all of it at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. And you're only going to get that, aren't you, by having practitioners like yourself that are willing to have those frank, honest
Mm.
conversations. And ultimately, it kind of leads to this demise of industries in a way, because when everybody starts to continually perpetuate false promises or false outcomes, again, we'll come on to that with photos in a bit, because I know you've got some opinions around that. It perpetuates this idea that that's the expectation and what should happen, and it almost cracks an industry because nobody can actually deliver what the consumer thinks that they're supposed to get.
It's difficult. It really is. I have to turn away customers because I will say to them, I'm not good enough to do what you expect, but here's someone I know who is.
Yeah.
And that's what's needed.
Yeah, because there's levels, isn't there? There's levels to it for sure. Someone who's been tattooing for
Mm.
15 years, is going to be a completely different practitioner to someone who's just qualified, has been doing it for 6 months. They just have a completely different understanding of the skin, of their, the things
Yeah.
that they're using, their inks, what their heels are like. The thing is with being a PMU artist, you don't even know what your heels are like till 18 months, 2 years down the line. So you've got an entire 2 years before you even actually know what your work heels like, which is wild. There's not many other industries where you don't get to see what
And
your
that's
work
if
looks
they
like.
and that's if they do come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's if they do come back. I had a customer the other day, who I had done her eyebrows about 4 months ago, and she'd come back for a top up as well, and then she was getting tattooed by one of the girls at the studio, and I was like, "There's a big patch. Why didn't you tell me?
Mm,
Let's sort that
yeah.
out." But she was happy with it. She didn't notice. I did, because you're going to be completely critical of your own work.
Mm.
But it's also hard because it's quite hard to chase up old clients as well. Just to you'd constantly be worrying about them, and then they will worry if you're worrying. So it's a really hard.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a vicious cycle, really.
Yeah, it is. It's not for the faint of heart, I don't think, PMU. I think it is treated a bit like a softer treatment choice as a practitioner, but I don't know if it is, because of the uncertainty,
Mm.
and because of the fact that you don't get to fix a problem straight away. I feel like if you've got an issue with a filler, or Botox, you're going to know relatively quickly that there's a problem, and you're going to probably be able to fix it really quick. Whereas
Mm.
us guys can go on 6 months and think everything's all right. And then, like you say, the client walks in and they've got, a big gap in their brow, and you're thinking, why did no one say this to me 6 months ago?
Yeah.
So it's very, very different. And I think people
But
do.
also with PMU, I believe that it's a lot of the customers. It's their some of their lifestyle choices as well. You could do somebody in the winter, and then they've gone and spent the entire summer with their brows straight up in the air, getting all the sun going at their face. Not that I've had this, but well, I did have it once with someone who, she was like, they faded, and I'm like, well, they're gonna fade because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Hence semi-permanent makeup. And yeah, it's kind of like, it's also learning um, about the science, about the pigmentation as well. I'm just going through this at the moment, learning about the different types of
Mm,
pigments out there and what's in them, and what can be better results, what can be worse results, what can make them go a bit blue. And currently I'm trying to go through the correcting process with everything, but
mm.
that's a
I'm
lot
the
of
same.
teaching yourself,
Yeah.
or more courses from when we you know
Yeah, I'm the
so
same,
yeah.
Jen. I'm still very much working through all of that, and I like to try and, get my new pigment out if I buy a new one, and then sit and look at it and look at the breakdown and exactly what pigments that make that end product, and how is that going to react with, if someone decides they want laser, is that going to leave like grey or black behind, or it's all of those, you're going through it in
Yeah.
your head, and it takes a really long time to get your head around that, and to learn exactly what is in each product.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll bring it to your training then. How did
Yeah.
you find your initial training? I find a lot of artists feel very lost as they come out of a short course and need further support and education. I obviously found this through the PMU circle, thanks to your recommendation. So how was your initial training? Was there, was it quite good, or did you feel like there was quite a lot missing?
To be perfectly honest with you, and and I think this is where I'm going to keep saying this throughout this interview is it's the transparency with these things. My training was dreadful,
Mm.
really. I felt that afterwards, coming away and working in a tattoo studio and then meeting other PMU artists, I was like, what have I just spent thousands and thousands of pounds on?
Mm.
Um, it was quite sad to know that some of the girls that I had done the course with, none of them are working in it now. They've
No.
moved on to aesthetics and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was discrepancies with the learning. There was discrepancies with the money, the machines. And unfortunately, I'm not going to name any names
No.
because that's just out of bad taste. But the woman who'd set up the academy is quite well known in the PMU field. She does a lot of conferences about making money, and she definitely made money on this
Mm.
because you get this package that you think is amazing. We get this machine, we get these cartridges, we get the pigments. Now the pigments we got were good. We got Tina Davis ones, so that was good. But the manuals and everything, and it was. These on you had to do remote learning for a while, but now looking back at it, I remember being so confused and having to do so much research because you had to do X amount of remote learning before even speaking to a teacher. So how on earth would we know what half of them were going on about? And you'd just be like, well, we had to do a tick box, and what you could do is you could go back. So if you got it wrong a few times, you could go back and you could still get your qualification. So yeah, it was tough. And we were tattooing people's faces within 3 days, and we weren't really having. We were having somebody floating around. How many was there on the first? 7 people. And you also had a young girl who had been working for a year, also supervising us. And obviously, looking back at it, I didn't know the difference between, you get told, well, you start off, you'll be doing 5 clients a week, 10 clients a week, 20 clients, the financial side of it was all shoved down your throat as well, which was like, oh my God, I've made completely the right decision doing this. And actually, 3 years down the line, I'm not making even a fraction of the amount that they said I would be making. It was a lot of smoke and mirrors, and it was a lot of bad practices. And I've gone on to do other courses now, which have topped up the understanding that I have. But a lot of this has been self-taught now, and through other PMU artists that I know, sharing knowledge, but also sharing the same experiences. I have not met anyone just yet who can fully say that the course that they did was worth the thousands and thousands of pounds that they have spent on doing it. Because if we spend this much money on these courses, there should be no gaps. And there were a lot, considering we then went out and we put a needle to somebody's face.
Yeah, but I had a very similar experience to that, I think, which is why I was so grateful for you kind of saying, have you joined PMU Circle yet? Because it was like a saving grace the minute that I left. It was the first thing I did when I came back from my course was sign up immediately, because I was like, there is no way in hell that has taught me enough for me to be able to go away and actually start needling someone's face. And so, I just did loads of practice mats and just watched loads of the videos on there, like over and over again, trying to perfect technique. But even just the attitude of my trainer, it was like, She really didn't wanna be there. It was just her job. It felt like she just checked in every day, collected a paycheck at the end of the month. She's clearly employed, so it was part of
Yeah.
a bigger academy, so she was actually on salary. I get that impression. And I
Mm.
just think educators shouldn't, at the moment, people go into education because of the money. And it's
Yeah.
such a shame because to me, if I want to coach someone or mentor someone or educate someone, it's because I bloody love passing on knowledge. I love doing it. I love seeing
Exactly.
someone win. I love seeing someone grow. Like, you've got to want that. I think that's the only way you can run a really, really successful course and academy is actually being in it and loving and enjoying the education process. And it just lacks that a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it seems that people who've been doing this for 2 years suddenly, you know, that we're not making the money that we thought we would,
Yeah.
but to then go and bullshit some new people about it, and say that if you do this course for a couple of £1,000 with us, you'll get a qualification. Anybody can make a qualification.
Mm,
It's you know, we know that this is an unregistered,
mm,
unmonitored sort of practice. Um, you know, obviously you're licensed by your local authorities and everything like that, but even they say
mm,
who's monitoring this, and unfortunately, if there's money to be made out there, people are going to try and do it.
mm.
I have a lot of faith now in the PMU artists that have come out, like Tanya Buxton, she's one of them, who do courses for people who've been doing it for a long time, or
Masterclasses.
experienced ones, or yeah, masterclasses.
Mm,
And too right that we have to have experience to get in them. I don't necessarily know if that's the requirements for hers, but you know, on other ones, we should have experience. We should have basic knowledge, well, more than basic knowledge now.
mm,
Um, and it's disheartening. If somebody was, a friend of mine in LA actually contacted me and asked me, she was like, "Girl, I need to get on this." And I was like, "No, you don't. No,
mm,
you don't. Like, from what you're doing to what I'm doing,
mm,
no. Um, like, don't get waylaid by what people are promoting online, basically. Um, I mean, I'm making out that the whole industry is a complete, like, yeah, you know, it's not right, but it's just very saturated.
yeah.
It's very saturated, and there's a lot of people having a lot of money taken off them.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's the same in the aesthetics world. So obviously, I get a lot of aestheticians on here that are having very similar experiences with regards to training, with regards to people running courses and academies, and the fact it's unregulated at the moment, although that's apparently set to change. So it's across all of these kind of industries. There is a bit of an intersection between PMU and aesthetics that are experiencing a very similar
Well,
thing.
I'm qualified in aesthetics
Why do you not do it?
because I do not have a medical license. I am not a registered nurse. I am not a registered doctor. When I did the corrections course, I was like, I'm not doing this to people. I'm
Mm,
not doing this to people. You know, I went to a doctor who unfortunately damaged my face. Now I go to a wonderful nurse who's been doing this for 12 years, who is so thorough, and she is so clear about everything, but also she's medically trained.
mm,
And I obviously didn't know a lot about the complications that could happen with aesthetics. And
mm.
when we went deep into it, I was like, there's no way. And I love the fact that you get taught about this at the end of a course, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, because
and I
again,
just said,
there's not that transparency there. So we go back to what you said
no,
earlier about the fact that all the good stuff is up front. So when you're looking into
mm,
a new career, all the really good stuff is up front. It's all about the money, the excitement, the clients, the fun, the
yeah,
prettiness of it. But actually what you really need up front is if you're really interested in this industry, this is the reality of how it is. you know, you've got to do a lot of further
Yeah.
education. You have to do a lot of master classes. You have to really, really understand the complications side of things. And like you say, it's left at the very end. You do it like your last day of the course, don't you? Complications
Yeah.
comes right at the end.
Yeah. You have to buy this really expensive kit. The whole course is really expensive in the start. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I went and did my course, I did it for 3 hours and I got a certificate.
I know. It's
Three
mad.
hours.
Yeah. We
Three
talk about
hours.
it a lot
That
on here.
Yeah, 3 hours. I got the certificate from someone who was a doctor, and they should have known better.
Mm,
It was just like, oh, you wanted my money too, and
yeah.
it's like, um, I don't think I don't think I can't do it to people. I can't do it. People's well-being is more important to me than the money, and that's why I don't do aesthetics, because I feel that everyone that has aesthetics, and they should know the dangers, they should know the risks, because like I said, I had my entire face, one side, uh, frozen for 3 months.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Mm,
and I couldn't, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be able to wake up in the morning knowing that I'd hurt somebody's face like that.
mm,
And yeah, it's scary out there. I really think you should have good medical knowledge. So if there is a terrible complication like necrosis or anything like that, that they should
mm.
be able to fix. They
Yeah.
shouldn't, and it shouldn't be that the fact that they have a doctor at the end of the phone, because what if that person doesn't pick up that phone in time?
Mm. Yeah, I
It,
think
it's
this is why the regulations coming in, you know, I think everybody, I mean, at least most people I've spoken to is in agreement that if they were to enforce, you know, a minimum standard of a level 7 training, you've got a minimum standard of this, that's where the industry needs to go. There needs to be a minimum
Mhm.
level of qualification where you can really, really delve in quite deep into all of these things like complications. Because at the moment, you don't have to do complications training. You know, you don't have to. You, like you say, you can pay
Oh,
X amount and go train and then inject someone, you know, the next day. Um, so
oh,
it'd be
yeah, it's
interesting to
awful.
see. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the changes are. But I can agree with you. I think it definitely needs standardizing in terms of education and a pathway, so that everybody's is working on the same level. And like you say, you know, it doesn't
Mm.
matter. Not it's not about the medic non-medic debate, because there are doctors and nurses that equally do things not as good as your, you know, people who are non-medics. It's about
Yeah, I
the
mean, that's what happened to
skill.
me. Like,
Yes, it's the skill
yeah,
of the individual, isn't it? It's the training and skill of the individual that counts.
yeah, and it's the caring, and I think a lot of people, even in PMU, like we were saying about that woman not wanting to be there. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter
Mm,
if you are a doctor, an ex-GP, a plastic surgeon. If there's people that just have lost the passion and they want the pound
yes.
signs, then you're not going to get the best quality. You're not going to get the best quality, and unfortunately, that's when people stop caring, that's when mistakes happen.
Yeah.
So, um, yes, okay, you shouldn't need to be medically trained. I personally think that should be some sort of requirement,
Mm,
um, even if it's dental nurses or nurses or doctors. There should just be, if you're putting those sort of needles deep inside people's faces,
mm.
that could cause permanent damage, it needs to be more regulated. But they have also been saying this for a very, very long time.
Yeah, they have. They have. We'll see. I mean, we've just found out that we're bringing the election forward, so we may even end up with a completely
Yeah.
different government, and this conversation is completely null and void because it gets put on the back burner yet again. So, who knows what will happen with it? So moving on a little bit then, back into you. We'll get
Mm.
away from industry a little bit. What's your
Yeah.
stance on marketing in permanent makeup? What are your ethics around editing images? I'm asking you this because I already know your answer, but I want the listeners to hear it. So I know you've got quite a strong opinion with regards to how we present our work.
Well, we should present our work as true as we can. I mean, there's editing for the sake of a customer who's probably got a big zit on their face and they don't really want the world to see that, which is fair enough. But the editing of the work now, it's so difficult because I know people feel so worried about their work putting up, like people worry about their faces being put up, so they edit their faces. It's the world of AI and editing, but it's 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 so hard because it's not getting that true look.
Yeah.
You can now do so much with editing some things in an image that it's just not true. You know, it's just not true. And regarding marketing, you try and sell something that you don't do, and unfortunately the customers are going to be unhappy because that's not the result they're getting.
It's so true. You're just setting yourself up for failure a little bit, aren't you? I think that's the thing. Like, if that's the promise that you have, then surely you're just setting yourself up as a practitioner for failure the minute that client doesn't get what you keep saying they're gonna get on all of your videos or images.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it doesn't do them justice, but it doesn't do you justice either in the long term. And I think
no,
initially, like,
no,
I come from a product background, so definitely initially coming in, my thought was like, marketing is really important. It's got to be on point. My images have got to look like amazing because I want to like capture people's attention. And then literally after about 2 months of being in the industry, I was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually not going to get an editor involved because it just sells the wrong image. So now I literally just
yeah,
adjust contrast up or down the shadow just to make sure the image looks bright, and that's it. Maybe turn up a little bit of sharpness so it's sharp, and that is it. The image goes
yeah,
up. There's no smoothing involved, there's no tinkering with the colors involved. Yeah, it's really important. So I definitely came in from a different background, and initially I was sort of like, it's got to be on point, it's got to be on point, but that's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the human body. The human body isn't on point all the time. It's not realistic.
no,
And, like, even taking the
no.
redness when
But
you've tattooed someone, it's gonna be red and swollen.
mm,
It's going to be red. So just
yeah,
leave
yeah,
the redness there because you've just tattooed it and then took a photo. So, they're gonna walk out a little
yeah,
bit
yeah.
sore.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I am for like you said, taking the saturation down, taking the brightness down. Sometimes, if you, I find because I have a skylight in my room, if I've been doing it a certain time with the natural light and then I finish,
Like,
it's kind
blown
of like,
out.
ooh, but exactly. But I just recently did a one-to-one course with a woman called Lucy Hill, and she's kind of been my mentor through the whole thing. And she basically showed me. I was always like, oh my goodness me, your images are wonderful. How do you do it? And there's me thinking she's got this amazing camera, she's doing this, doing that. But we had exactly the same equipment, the same ring light, the same phone. But there was just the way she held it in a
Mm,
particular way with the light in the right angle. You know, zooming in instead of taking up close.
mm.
It was amazing how you have absolutely no idea unless you've come from some sort of photography background. But she hadn't either. Because she was the tattoo artist. But I've made a lot of mistakes with my photos and videos over the years. Um, I had a very gloomy room when I very first started, and I just couldn't ever get them right
Mm.
because the strip lights over the top, ring light didn't do
It makes
anything.
such a
I had a
difference.
Yeah. I'm really lucky now because the owner of the studio I work at, Alice, she's given me the most amazing opportunity and space. She's even just moved me again into a really light, airy space, which I now look at my work and I'm like, oh, I can see it.
Mm.
Um, like I said, I will always take out like zits and things like that for customers because otherwise they don't want you to put the photo up,
Yeah,
do they?
yeah. Mhm.
Um, and yeah, you can blur them out, but don't blur your work out. You can see
Yeah.
it anyway. You know, you don't have to go up to the line. If you go up to the line, you're never going to get that crisp look.
Mm.
Sometimes the images won't look as crisp as you like, but it's a really hard one, because there's over editing, or there's not editing at all. And I
Yeah.
find seeing both the images online, you know, sometimes other people's adverts come up, and I think, oh, that's a little high definition, isn't it? You know,
Mm.
picking up on too many pores, or the redness is raw,
Yeah.
because obviously you can't, no skin's the same. And then you see the ones that are definitely from like the some of the Russian adverts that come
Yes,
up. It's
I know
just like,
exactly which ones you mean. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, whoa, whose eyebrows look like, whose face looks like that, you know?
Mm.
And oh, you've got these super crisp lines, and the face is perfect, there's not a pore in sight,
Mm.
and they get so much traction online, and I
Mm.
don't understand
This is
why.
the law though, that's what I mean. It's very alluring to start feeling trapped by not producing images like that, because when there
Yeah,
are so many artists that do, and they are the ones that get a lot of attention, it gets a lot of likes, it gets a lot of shares, and I get why it looks beautiful, but the problem with it is it's not true, it's not real to life, and it
no,
does tempt you as a practitioner to think, "I need my images to look as good as that because I need people to see my work as well." So it is very difficult, it's
yeah,
very tough. It's the same in
yeah,
aesthetics. There is
yeah,
a lot of in aesthetics, but I feel like
yeah.
it seems to be a lot more in PMU. It seems to be really quite bad, some of the lengths of editing that people go to with PMU, I find.
Yeah, and it's difficult, but it's disheartening sometimes, because you want your work to look like their work, but their work isn't real. And
Yeah.
it has even stopped me posting. I mean, I haven't been posting as much recently because I've been feeling quite imposter syndrome, I suppose.
Yeah.
Quite nervous. You know, which you would know from my page, is I mix my personal page and my work page, because it's really good for the insights, and also the reach.
Mm.
But when I post my work post my work, it doesn't get half as a quarter of as many likes as
Mm.
my personal posts, which I understand, and it still gets a lot of traction, but it's very disheartening. And then you see these adverts that come up, but if you really if you really look at these posts that come up, paid for comments, paid for
Yeah.
likes, you
Yeah.
know, and it's not fair. That's something that Instagram, we've always said, is it just needs to nail down on, because for small
Mm.
business owners, you just want to throw the towel in. You know, if you're
Yeah.
seeing this person with like thousands of followers, and they've got thousands of likes, and they're saying they're booked up for the next 2 years, it's all baloney.
Yeah. Yeah, it's few and far between. There are gonna be the odd practitioners out there, of course there are, there always are, but they're
Yeah.
normally, few and far between, and if it's every other practitioner, you're like, is it though? Is it really?"
No.
Um,
Yeah.
but let's come on to you. Tell us about a treatment that you were most proud of. Have you got a pair of eyebrows or lips that you were super proud of? I know you've said you get imposter syndrome, I get that.
I had a customer come in who had recently developed alopecia, and she had lost all of her hair um, within 8 weeks. And
Wow.
even when she first sent me the first image, I was like, okay, there's a bit to work with. I can do this. And then when she came in, she'd lost even more, and
Mm.
I was terrified. I was like, oh my god, I can't fuck up on this. Sorry, but I
Yeah.
can't mess up on this at all. It's it's yeah. I took my time. And to be honest, I was literally, while I was mapping from a picture of my hero who does the fluffy brows, you know, and I'm like, we were there for a long time. The first results were wonderful, you know, that very first image. The healed results weren't as good as the initial ones, because I found the skin was quite hard to work with. The skin is different when alopecia's happened, and also I think alopecia mixed with the numbing agent, it was quite hard. And after the second one, felt a bit better, you know. Unfortunately, you know, it was just one of those things for her, and I, you know, and I really hope she's happy with the results. I mean, she hasn't said she's not. So they were my proudest one, because of the transformation that they did cause, and she was ever so happy. And she was ever so happy the second time. Obviously, your own worst critique, but they were really good. And I had another young girl as well, who she just didn't have eyebrows. You know, she had the teeny bit there. There was no 90s over plucking or anything like that. She just didn't have them. And I gave her a powder brow.
Nice.
And, you know, every so often I like to go back and go, oh, look at that, look at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are many, there are many ones, you know, like when you do the lips and you get that swell and they look so sexy for the face, you know, when you've just done them and they're red and you're like, oh, God, they're good. But I am my own worst critic, and you know, everyone I do, I'll think, I could have done this and I could have done that, but I'll do that on the next person.
That's normal,
You know.
though. I think that's normal in all of these industries. I think having that self-reflection constantly, and
Yes.
I know sometimes it kind of leads into imposter syndrome, and you have to be a little bit careful how overly critical you are, because if you're not careful, it puts you off even wanting to do any more work. So there's a fine line, but I think it's a good thing if you are constantly analyzing your work and being a bit like,
Yeah.
okay, I probably need to do this better next time, or I need a bit more training on this, or whatever. It's only ever going to make you a better practitioner, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you had a time where you felt challenged as an artist, but I feel like that you're going to tell me about the alopecia client. Would that be right? Would that be the time where you felt most challenged?
Yes. Yeah. Completely. And yeah, that was definitely it. It was it was a different type of skin to work on. It was a result that needed to be good. You know, I didn't want to put any more stress on someone who was obviously going through quite a stressful time anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the one, and I think maybe that's why it was my favorite one to do. You know.
Yeah, challenge is sometimes the best thing, brings you on leaps and bounds. So, before PMU, what was your background and how has that helped you in running the business? So, you've mentioned about working for the magazine and stuff. Like, what's your work history been like? You don't have to tell me everything from the minute you left school, but has anything that you've done previously kind of influenced you coming into running your business now?
No, not really, to be honest. I was in the bar trade for a long time, as a second job for other jobs all the time. And when I always did a little bit of sort of little bit of journalism, which I had absolutely no qualifications in with the magazine. I think they just liked the way I spoke to people. I have completely winged it through life up to now. You know,
Same.
I'm nearly 39, and yeah, and I've finally felt that my business head was on. When we did the gin school, we were teaching people how to make gin, and we were basically running, me and this girl called Lucy were basically just running this business as best we could, and it was tough, and it just made me realize that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be more of a business owner, and that's where it came from. But working at the magazine is what gave me the love for being in the tattoo industry. I was already heavily tattooed anyway, but being around a lot of the tattoo artists in London, being a part of the industry when it was such a rock and roll thing back then,
Mm.
it was so much fun. I mean, this was nearly 10 years ago,
Mm.
and I just wanted to be a part of that, and that's why PMU seemed to do the best thing. And then I wanted to bring the PMU and the tattoo together,
Mm.
because everyone says, well, why don't you be a tattoo artist? I'm like, well, I would, but I can't
I
draw.
get asked this all the time. I'm so glad you brought that up. I get asked it every
Mm.
time someone finds out I do PMU and I work from a tattoo studio. And every time my answer is, "But I'm not an artist." Like, I didn't grow
Yeah,
up with this skill of drawing and picking up a paintbrush, and, like, I didn't go to uni and do fine art or, like, whatever people do.
yeah,
I'm not now suddenly at 35 gonna be like, "I'm just gonna draw for a living and then tattoo people."
yeah.
That's not People do assume that just because you wield a needle in a machine that you suddenly then can transfer that to tattooing. I will just quickly ask you, actually, I didn't write about it. So how do you feel about fine line? Because obviously there's a lot of PMU crossing
You
over
mean
into fine line.
these micro needlers?
Yeah, yeah, like
Oh,
people no,
I think it's bloody stupid.
yeah,
You
coming
know,
into doing
like
fine
I
line
am
tattooing.
laser removing these all the time at the moment. They do
Okay.
these fine lines and the ink just drops out because they've got absolutely no understanding. It's a completely different ball game. They
Mm,
haven't been apprentices at a tattoo studio, and I am now laser removing them. So I should really thank them all at the moment because you're really
yeah.
keeping me going with the laser removal. But they look dreadful. There are proper artists out there like Mike Love, tattooer, who does fine line, who does these little tattoos. He's bloody brilliant. Go to
Mm,
somebody that knows what they're doing, who's been doing this for years and years and years. Don't do it to someone who's been tattooing eyebrows with a completely different type of needle, who
yeah.
are printing their pictures offline, and
Mhm.
they're offering some sort of discounted rate for it. If it's discounted, it's no good. Don't.
It was Canva Gen for me. I was on my course, so I'll tell you a little story. I was on my course and I was doing my training in brows and
Yeah,
lips, and they were running fine line at the same time. So obviously I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna like keep my ear open because I'm intrigued." Like, and they were like, "Oh
yeah.
yeah, you can just print your designs off Canva." So that's what they were doing, just printing out little pictures off Canva onto transfer paper, and that's what they were gonna use. I don't even know where that stands in terms of, like, copyright and all of that kind of stuff and intellectual property. I really don't know, but I was just like,
Yeah.
"That's just not how this should work. This is just
No, no, not at
crazy."
all. I mean, like I say, I think I've posted today about I'm not a tattoo artist. Stop asking me. I mean, God, I've got all that work on my page with all the tattoos that I do, which I don't. But yeah, it's dreadful. It's another way of taking money off people who they don't really know what they're doing and they're not tattoo artists. And there
No.
are some PMU artists that are making dough on this at the
Yeah,
moment,
it's
but
true.
they haven't done apprenticeships. They haven't put in the time. And I know tattooing is also unregulated, but at least in the tattoo community, the ones that are experienced and do know what they're talking about, they promote doing long apprenticeships for a reason. So you're
Yeah,
not.
you're not gonna get your foot in the door, are you? Without doing an
No.
apprenticeship, it's just not gonna happen in the tattoo industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's something they really should stop in these courses as well.
But the
But who
problem is
am
it's
I to
because
say?
they don't have the respect and the because it's a cultural thing. I explain this to people. There's a lot of culture around tattooing. It's not You've got to
Mm,
understand the industry itself from the inside out for you to understand why this is
yeah.
a problem to everyone working in the industry.
Mm,
Um, and so obviously a lot of people that are coming from maybe a beauty background or a PMU background that are just doing a fine line course, they can't understand why they're getting all of this aggression. I've had PMU artists ask me why they're seeming to have a problem with it. And I'm like, well, that the fact you're asking the question tells you don't know the industry because you're asking the question. So that means
yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
know enough about it. To me, I know immediately
Yeah.
what's wrong. You know immediately what's wrong and why it's an issue, and it's because you understand the cultural aspect of tattooing. So yeah, I'm glad that I got to
Yeah.
ask you that. So we're coming towards the end now, Jen. What are your ambitions for Serpent's Brow in the future? Have you got anything in the pipeline or something that you would love to do?
Um, Really, at the minute, I am just going to carry on the way I'm going. I've just done a wonderful course with Lucy Hill. It was a one-to-one. She's been my mentor since the day dot, and she's incredible. Um, I just want to keep going and keep learning and keep trying new techniques. I adore the studio that I work at. I get so much wonderful support and patience as well, because when I'm having terribly quiet periods, there isn't the pressure, and
Mm,
there's only support, and I'm lucky. I'm lucky for that. I The lasering, it will just be when people are ready to do it. You can't kind of, that's something that people come to you. I know we're just kind of heading out of a strange financial period, but
mm,
I also just have to be patient. I do keep getting completely undercut by other PMU artists just popping up, offering £100
mm,
brows at the moment. But
mm,
patience in this industry is what I'm promoting. I don't want my own studio. I want to work with people. I love
mm,
working in a tattoo studio. Um, and yeah, I might be doing some guest spots in some salons, and that's quite interesting to do. And it's amazing being invited to do guest spots, because I'm like, oh, you've noticed me, like,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, at the moment it's just learning. I'm so the brain food I'm getting from it at the minute is really inspiring. So that's where I'm at the moment with it.
Yeah, good on you, and I think that's a perfect fit for you as well, looking at the sort of
Yeah,
guesting route and, just getting your name out there more in the tattoo community as, like, the go-to artist for PMU. I think that's a really good avenue for you to explore, when you're ready to do it. I think it fit really well, and if I may sort of interject on your social media, get posting, Jen, because you're great at what you do, and, just
oh,
ignore the imposter syndrome, just try and park it to the side and just get putting that content up because it deserves to be up there, and, I think, you'll be found more as well from other studios and things, so if you can, even after this conversation and just think, "You know what? I'm just gonna power through it. I'm gonna get my
yeah,
content out
yeah,
there and power
no.
through it," I think you totally should.
Yeah, thank you. Oh,
So
that's really sweet.
you're welcome. So to wrap up then, where can our community find you online? What's your Instagram and what's your website?
So my Instagram is Serpent's Brow. That's my handle. My website is www.serpentsbrow.co.uk or com, one or t'other. I'm having issues with Google. It's saying it's my old studio at the moment, and I can't seem to change it or delete it. But my reviews are on there if people want to see. But mostly, all bookings are through Instagram, and I'm not on Facebook.
Good to know. Thanks, Jen. Thank you so much for coming on. You've been absolutely amazing,
You're
really
welcome.
insightful. I think we've got a really different angle on PMU in general from you and looking at laser and stuff like that. So thank you so much for your time and best wishes with everything. I'm sure we'll be in touch anyway. Like we keep in touch a bit, don't we? So thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you so much, Jess. Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.